Hello and welcome to this course, Introduction to Programming. I am super excited to have you here. There's a whole lot to talk about and teach you, and I can't wait to get started. So, who is this course for? This course is for newbies who want to enter into the web development field and who need a roadmap. It can be very complicated um, to enter into a very new field such as the web development field, and without the right guidance, you can easily get missing. There's a whole lot of content out there, tips out there, but without a proper structure and a proper guide, it can be very, very, very tough and confusing to get into it. So this course is exactly as it stands, as it sounds. We are going to introduce you to programming, the very basic concepts of programming, so that even if you have not had any experience with it, you can quickly get up to speed with the entire idea of what it entails. It's not difficult, it's not hard. Usually people end up making it look very scary, but once you get a hold of it, the basic fundamentals is very easy to grasp, right? And this course is also for programmers, people that have dabbled in it a little, but it's been a long time and then they want to sort of freshen up on the entire idea. Okay, you are also welcome in this course. And the objectives for this course, is to understand the minimum basics of programming, like we mentioned. Okay, the very, very bare fundamentals. We will not go too deep, okay, to scare you. Okay, just trying to keep things simple with basic analogies and examples, anything to make you understand. We try to explain it as if we're explaining it to a small child, right? Just so that you understand it more clearly, right? And then we will also get to understand some of the common terminologies in the programming field, right? And then by the end of this course, you design your first Hello World website. Very simple, very, very simple, with a few lines of text here and there, just to sum up everything that we've done here. Also show you how to set up your first developer environment. Something very simple, it's not complicated. In Sublime Text, you just download it and install it. I'll take you through that. I'll also show you the career path of a web developer, the usual some questions that come along with it, some confusions and misunderstandings around the industry. I'll talk about that too briefly. This course is not just about teaching you the actual core programming, but we also want to show you how important all the other intangibles also matter in becoming a professional web developer as well. So this is a 360 course that I believe will help you a lot. So let's jump in with one very important question that usually comes out. That's the typical web developer income. So how much can you really make as a web developer? Well, this really depends on the region or country that you are in. The range is very wide, very wide. So you can have annual incomes as low as $5,000 to as high as $180,000 plus a year. Okay, so it all depends on your experience too, matters, where you've worked, the project you've done before, all that stuff counts, right? It's all about really adding more value to yourself. You can, if you're in a region where salaries are a bit low, on the lower end of the range, right, you could also explore remote job opportunities. There's a whole lot of remote job opportunities out there that are challenging. Okay, that will help you go up on the career ladder. Okay, but then you need to up your skills, up your game. We'll talk about that too more and more. So then, becoming a web developer in this modern age is very, very lucrative. Very, very lucrative. I mean, a whole lot of companies are in need of web developers, web applications. There's a host of technologies that you can learn. There's a lot of flexibility that also come with being a web developer, that I feel like, and I believe that once you explore it, no matter who you are, you can really earn a living. You can really, really build a career in this field. Just a quick one. So this is the first of our numerous videos. If you are here, please do well to subscribe, hit the notification button, right? There's a whole lot we'll be bringing weekly videos on several programming content, especially for beginners like you. We also talk a lot about career tips and guidelines. We want to make coding and programming, building a career in it as easy and straightforward as possible. So please do well to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. All right, so what you need to know as a professional web programmer right now, one, your technical skills. You cannot be a programmer without your technical skills. All right, you cannot be. So these are the core skills that you need: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Git, and GitHub. Don't worry about these. There's a whole lot to talk about them in later videos, later content. But it is very key. Without this, you cannot even call yourself a professional web programmer, right? So these are technical skills that you need. They are core. It's from these skills that you end up building more advanced skills. Most of the languages that are coming, we talk about what programming languages are. Most of the languages that are coming, most of the concepts that are coming out, they are all based on the fundamentals of these skills, right? So as a web developer, these are skills that you cannot escape, right? You need it as much as possible. Now, two, this is something people do not talk about mostly, is how to communicate effectively and clearly. You need to know how to do this. We'll talk about that too in the course of the video. Communicating not just with your clients and your customers, but also with your colleagues. If you're a professional developer in the corporate world, how to communicate with your colleagues, how to clarify things, questions, projects that you are giving, tasks that you are giving. You need to be able to communicate effectively and clearly. Collaboration and teamwork. Now, there's a difference when you're a solo developer and when you're working on a team. Okay, how do you collaborate? Okay, this builds upon being able to communicate effectively. Collaboration goes beyond just communicating. It's about sharing ideas, how to embrace other people's ideas, how to work in pace with others. So these are skills that this is also a very key skill that you need to know. Critical thinking. Most of the time, a web programmer's job is very complicated in a sense that there's a whole lot of interfacing with users and customers. All right, you have to do a lot of optimizations, a lot of study, a lot of research. So critical thinking is key. Okay, understanding different perspectives to a problem. Okay, analyzing a situation from the customer's point of view, from the business's point of view. Okay, from the resources that are available. This is very key to know as a web programmer. Now, point 5. You should be able to search for answers to common problems, right? There are problems that you'd encounter on your journey, both career-wise and then technical-wise, that other people have encountered. You should be skilled at being able to search Google, search online for such answers, search groups, ask your colleagues, ask your peers for solutions to such problems. In fact, it has to be like your natural instinct. Okay, it's very key that you're able to find. I see a whole lot of programmers and developers that they beat around a lot when they encounter simple problems, and it's like they get lost, they get stuck. Meanwhile, some of the problems they face have already been solved. So learning to find answers to common problems is a skill in itself. Right now, point 6, being able to self-learn. All right, I would say about 80% of this journey, in fact 90% of this journey, it relies on you, right? Even if you are pursuing a degree or you are pursuing a professional certification, whatever it is, a chunk of the work will still will depend on you being able to learn on your own. Just like you're watching this video right now, you picked up this video and you're watching on your own. You are self-learning, right? This is something that continues for the rest of your journey and the rest of your career as a web developer. You need to be able to self-learn. Pick up new languages, pick up new technologies, pick up new content, research the industry, what's going on, what's new, how can I improve my skills, learning new things on the go. Sometimes you are given a project and you don't really know, you don't have the right tool set, the right knowledge or the right skills to, perform that project. You need to be able to be dynamic and versatile. You have to learn on the fly. Okay, piece knowledge together, piece the whole concept together, and then do what you have to do. So being able to self-learn is very key. If you are not able to do that, you will not survive in this profession. Trust me, you will not survive. Now, the 7th thing is to be able to pay attention to details. Web development is, like I mentioned, is an industry that interfaces a lot with users, with customers, right? So you need to be able to pay attention to how your application, your software is performing. We'll talk about what a software is, right? The nitty gritties of the entire application, the challenges people are using having their software. You need to analyze and understand the basic things that are giving people frustration as they use your product. You need to look at the resources that are available. So you need you don't need to ignore anything, because the smallest thing may be the reason why somebody does not end up using your software, or maybe the reason why your entire system breaks, right? So being able to pay attention to details is a very, 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 very key thing you need to know as a web. It's a skill you need to cultivate as a web programmer. This is also a question that is usually asked: how long does it take to become a world-class web developer? Well, it's a lifetime, right? I have been programming. I've been in the web development industry for the past 9 years, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning something new every day. So it's not something that you say, hey, I'm doing this for like 3-4 years or 2 years and I'm done. No, that's not what you do. It's a lifelong journey. In fact, the more you move ahead in this industry, in this career, the more you realize there's a whole lot to learn, and the more you are eager and curious to learn more and improve your skills, right? So it's a lifetime thing, right? Yes, usually the fundamentals and the basics you can grasp it in a short while. Some take like 4, 5 months, 6 months, but to become world class, to become professional, it takes lots of experience, hitting the wall so many times, undergoing so many projects, learning how to do things right. There are things that you will never learn without practice. Okay, so it takes a lifetime. Then it also depends on how much you are constantly studying and improving your skills. If you are not if you don't practice for, like, let's say 6 months or 1 year, you cannot become a professional web developer like that. You always fall back. So it's constant steady, constant improving of your life skills. And then one thing that I like to advise newbies is that do as many real life projects as you can. The more real life projects you can do, I'll break this down to as we proceed along the video. The more real life projects you can do, the faster you can reach the world class level. Okay, the faster you can reach the experience level, the faster you can reach a level where you are respected enough, and companies trust you enough, okay, to give you a shot, to give you an opportunity, to earn or to work for them, right? So this is also very, very important. All right, so the tools you need for this course and some final tips. Number one, you need a decent laptop running Windows OS, right? You'll be using Windows mostly in this course. Number two, you need decent internet connectivity. You need to download some software here and there. We talked about downloading Sublime Text, so you need some internet connectivity. In fact, you cannot be a web developer, a professional web developer, without your own laptop and some internet connectivity. So please, if you do not have this, do well to get this. Try to get a laptop. It doesn't have to be too high end as you are starting. It can be something moderate, something decent. The internet connectivity doesn't have to be like the craziest, but at least as long as you're able to watch this video, then at least you have this decent internet connectivity. Number three, you need some headphones to lock in to this course, right? So then something just to drown out the noise around. Trust me, as a developer, you need headphones a lot, right? Especially when you want to lock into a project that you are doing, and right from the beginning, just try to pick up on these things, these little skills that no one talks about. So you need something to lock in, to enter a flow state. As you develop, you need to be able to enter a state where you are working at your best, you are creative at your best, and trust me, headphones really help with that. And finally, always research and read more on whatever is taught in this course. So whatever I show you, whatever I explain, do well to go out there, pick up that skill, that instinct, that discipline right from the get-go, right? If you are confused about anything, You can go out there, go online, try to read more. Okay, don't just end here, right? Always push to do more. Always be curious to learn more about that, and that is the beginning. That is the first step into becoming a professional. Without that, like I said, you cannot go far, right? So always research and read more. So let's get into the meat of this course. So we'll start. What is programming? What is coding? You hear this thrown around so many times. You see people sitting behind some screens and then typing some things in black and white and all that in movies, and you wonder, what is this? It's so complicated. It's so, trust me, programming and coding is not even complicated. You see, it's fun, right? It's just like, take like math for example, right? We have levels, we have degrees. Definitely 1 plus 1 is easier to solve than, let's say, 20 plus 20 or 597 plus 283, right? But then it's all like sort of the same concept, right? Some takes more time than others, but then it's there. So it's the same thing with programming, right? The bigger the project and the more complex the projects are, the more complicated they are to achieve, but it's not impossible. Okay, they all come back to the basics, to the fundamental, your ability to critically think through things, right? And that is the whole life of a programmer, to break things down into the barest minimum. Okay, because then what you are doing is that you are sort of giving instructions to the computer. That entirely is programming, and I'll be using some analogy. I'll use an analogy here to explain that in detail, right? So programming is basically giving instructions to be performed by a computer, right? So you prepare some instructions, some layout of a task that has to be done, and then you just pass it over to the computer. Hey, computer, do this for me, and the computer does what it's supposed to do. Okay, so let's jump into an analogy. So giving a chef recipe to follow to prepare a meal. Let's say you want a chef to prepare a meal for you, right? You design a recipe, okay, for the meal that you want. You give it to the chef. The chef goes through the recipe and then gives you the output, which is the meal that you want, right? So take it like the chef is the computer, right? The recipe is your program, right? The instructions that you have prepared, and the meal is the required output that you want from the program. It's that simple. Once you're able to get this analogy, you understand what programming is. All right, so the chef is the computer, recipe is your program with the instructions you've prepared, and the meal is the required output. Now, let's talk about programming languages. So, okay, now that you know what programming is, you know what programming languages are. Don't worry, we'll talk about more practical examples so that you get a stronger hold of it. So, all chefs understand and can speak a single recipe language, right? To prepare a meal, right? The only thing chefs can use is the recipe to follow. That's the language they understand, right? But then human beings, we speak in a whole lot of other languages. We speak English, we speak French, we speak Hausa, and a whole lot. Okay, how do we still bring all this? How do we still standardize all these different languages into a standard recipe language that every chef that takes the recipe can understand? Okay, this is where programming languages come in, right? So then we have to follow a certain standard to design that recipe and give to the chef so that the chef will follow. You cannot just get up and then write some paragraphs and say this is your recipe. You need to follow a standard. Okay, whether you speak English, whether you speak French, whether you speak Hausa, we need that standard. Okay, we need that protocol. And that is what programming languages are. All right, so programming languages are like sort of the standards that we can use to design those instructions. We can use to design those recipes that the chefs can follow, no matter the language you speak natively. All right. Furthermore, it's the same thing with computers, right? Now, computers understand one language, which is called binary, right? Now, binary is simply made up of ones and zeros. Computers, that is all they understand, ones and zeros, right? When you type 1 in Microsoft Word, the 1 is, when you type 1, the 1 is converted to ones and zeros. When you type something like my name is Kojo, my name is Peter, that my name is Peter is converted into ones and zeros for the computer to understand. So even as you watch this video is simply a series of ones and zeros that the computer has converted for you to look at this video as you are seeing it. All right, something converted this video to ones and zeros. All right, so that's the idea. So computers understand ones and zeros, but then human beings do not we cannot speak ones and zeros. Okay, how do you say my name is Peter in ones and zeros? You can't do that. All right. So then if you want to instruct the computer to display my name is Peter, how do you do it? That's when programming languages come in. All right. They come in to help you give that instruction. Right. Now, once you give that instruction, okay, there's something that's supposed to convert it into one sentence. The computers still don't understand your language. You get the idea. So there's something called compilers and interpreters, right? That converts whatever you type into the ones and zeros for the computer to understand, right? So programming languages, we have languages like Java, PHP, Python. I'm sure you've heard a whole lot about these languages. These are all, so just like we said, people speak English, French, and Hausa, Italian. Okay, there's a whole lot of languages out there that can converted into binary. So we have Java, PHP, Python, like we've mentioned. Now, all these languages are converted into binary by a compiler or an interpreter such that the computer can understand, right? So if you want to give your recipe to a computer, you write the recipe with Java, you can write the recipe with PHP, you can write the recipe with Python. Once you write that recipe, the compiler or interpreter will be able to convert that recipe into the ones and zeros, something standard that the computer can understand. So that essentially is programming languages. Let's talk more about it. And just like you prepare different recipes to cook different meals, right? Different programming languages are used to design different types of software, right? So you do not essentially use HTML to, let's say, build a desktop app, right? And the HTML language is used to design websites. All right, let's say you cannot use tomatoes to prepare porridge, for example, right? So every language has its use, right? So HTML is used to design website, except in instances where somebody develops something that can convert HTML into something that can be used as a desktop application, right? Which is very different. Java is used to program Android applications. C# can be used to program games, right? So these are languages. So then, depending on what you want to do, you go to the right tool set, right? But as a web developer, like we mentioned, HTML, JavaScript is what usually used. Some people say HTML is not a language. It's a technical argument. People say HTML is not a language. People say it's just a scripting something. I think for that, as you go on and on, you'll be able to better decide for yourself where it falls, right? With more research, you better know where it stands. Okay, so now how a software works. You know what programming is. You've learned what programming languages are. So now, what is software? What is software that people keep as software, program, right? So let's talk about what a software is. Now, a software or program is, think about the analogy of giving a recipe to the chef, which is the computer, and the recipe being your program, or a set of instructions, right? So a software is a recipe, set of instructions the chef computer has to follow to cook a meal or perform a task, right? So there is a whole lot of different types of software available that do different things, right? Games are types of software. Microsoft Word is a type of software. YouTube is a type of software, which is a web application. TikTok is a type of software. ATM software too are there. So there's a whole different type of software available. Now, all these software are a set of instructions or recipes that somebody or a team of people have written down to perform a task. So TikTok, when you break TikTok down into its software, you see is a whole lot of instructions that teams and companies have written to give you that TikTok application that you see. Right? When you take Microsoft Word and you break it down, it's all a set of instructions that have been written. And how are these instructions written? These instructions have been written in the various programming languages, right? So if you take a the TikTok app, for example, you know that, well, Java is mostly used to build Android applications. So you can estimate and give a theory that the TikTok Android mobile application has been developed. The set of instructions has been written in Java, right? In that instance, Android is in charge for converting it. There's a whole runtime library for converting that Java into ones and zero that your smartphone understands. You take Microsoft software to, there are languages that are used to develop that set of instructions for it. So a software is basically all those sets of instructions that are, so the more skilled you are in writing those instructions, the more complicated software and then better software you can put out there, right? Developing the skill sets or the instructions needed in developing a software like YouTube is different from something the language used to develop, let's say, TikTok or an ATM software. But then at its core, the fundamentals are always the same, right? The fundamentals are always the same. Now, in this course, we are talking more about a website, right? So, most of the time, we relate a software to a website, which is a website is definitely a type of software, so they work interchangeably, right? A software, that is the program or the instructions you've written, is made up of different type of components. That's variables, conditionals, loops. We talk about this, databases, APIs, UI, etc. And they are all needed to make it work exactly as required. Take a recipe, for example. The recipe has quantities that the chef needs to use. Use 2 cups, use 3 spoons. Ingredients that are needed to make the meal what you expect, right? And then there are also different layers to a software, right? Just like in the recipe, something has to come before something. Okay, maybe the oil has to be poured into the pan before something is fried. You can't go the other way around, or you get a different output, right? It's the same thing for a software. There are layers, right? You usually hear front end, back end. Front end usually means what the user sees, right? Backend, usually the backend, the user doesn't know what's going on in the backend. So front end, the part of the software that usually interacts with, is usually called the front end. Okay, what you use to develop the instructions used to develop the front end is different from the instructions used to develop the back end, right? Usually things like database manipulations and all those things are happening at the back end. We'll talk more on that too, as we'll talk more about all these components in the course of this lesson. So don't worry, just stay tuned to the end, and by the end of this lesson, you know what variables, conditions, loops, database, APIs, UIs, you understand what all of them are. So this is a simple diagram, right? About how a software works in the perspective of a website. All right, so we are trying to combine everything that we've learned in the previous slides into one diagram. All right, so over here on your left side, you have the program. You want to create a blue colored website with some pictures on it, right? So you use your HTML to write. We'll do a lab on this immediately after this, so just stay with me here. You write your HTML code on your file in a text file. You write all your instructions, blue, the blue site. You put all of them there. Right now, the browser that you see, that's what you are watching this video, Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer or Firefox or Opera, whatever you have it, that is the interpreter. So we said that there's supposed to be something that converts that instructions you've written into the ones and zeros that the computer understands. Okay, so in the web environment, the browser is usually in charge of that. Now we have compilers and we have interpreters. The browser can be a compiler in some cases, and it's an interpreter in most cases. So it interprets the instructions you've written here into ones and zeros, right? And then it sends this off to the computer. This is very simplified, okay, but it's the core fundamental. Now it sends that to your computer chip, right? So this YouTube video you are watching is as a result of the browser converting whatever the YouTube company has, whatever instructions the YouTube company has written into ones and zeros, and then your computer now displays this video to you. It displays the website to you. All right, so then if you want a blue website, you put the instructions there. The browser sort of picks up those instructions, converts it into ones and zeros for the computer, and the computer then converts and creates the blue website that you see over there. So this is basically the process for how a website is sort of converted from your instructions to. There's a whole lot of things that go on in between, right? But then on the highest of levels, this is basically what's happening. All right, we've not really talked about the networking part, the request, the service, and all those things. But just get this. Once you get this, I mean, you have the very bare fundamentals of how a software works, right? In other software like games and Microsoft Word, for example, the browser is not what is doing the conversion. Okay, there are specialized software called compilers, right, that are converting the instructions that have been written to the output that is needed, right? So then, if you are cooking a meal, this is your recipe. The instructions are your recipe. The computer is the chef. This is like an interpreter, and then your blue website is the output or is the meal that you were expecting. So this is basically how it works, right? So let's jump into a quick lab to demonstrate how this works, and do what to do along with me. In fact, what you need to demonstrate this at the fundamental is simply Notepad. So in this lab, we are going to just use Notepad. Very easy. You'll probably be surprised that, wow, you are come to create your first Hello website and all you need is Notepad. Yes, it's very easy. So I'm going to create our instructions for a simple blue website. We're going to see how that works. All right, and then I hope that you'll be able to learn something in the lab, right? So let's get started. So if you are ready, just pick up your laptop, open Notepad, and then let's go on with it in the next video. All right, so all you need for this lab is Notepad. All right, you just need Notepad. It will be surprising that such a very basic and simple product on your computer is all what you need to develop a website. Yes, at the core, you can use Notepad to develop very complicated websites, right? But then as technology improved, more complex and advanced editors came up that made writing your instructions easier and faster, like, and more fun to us. So, but then to keep this simple, all you need is Notepad. So you go to your start menu, you look for Notepad on your computer. It's installed by default on every Windows system, right? You click to open it, right? And then let's get started. So with our first website, I'll be writing some instructions over here. Just do all to follow along, but then don't worry about what they mean or how they work. You will learn this in other course modules as well. So just to give you an idea of what we've discussed, about how the instructions are converted by the browser and then display your instructions, right? So let's get started. So we are going to create a simple website that says, hello, this is my first website, right? Okay, so yes, there we go. Now once you are done, you can save this. So you go to File, Save As, right? And then the trick here is that you save this as a .html file, right? That's the fundamental extension for website files, right? So website instructions. So we can name it, let's say hello.html, and make sure you are making your save location desktop, right? So that you can easily locate it. So hello.html, I'm going to click on save. And then you'd realize that a file has been created on my desktop called hello.html. Okay, now this file is my instructions, right? Like I said, don't worry about the tags over here. We'll talk more about that in other videos. So I open hello.html. Now by default, you realize that I have the Google Chrome icon. So depending on what browser you have as your default browser, you will see the icon of that browser on the file, right? Meaning that the file can be opened in Google Chrome. So I double click on it, and there we go. This is your first website, right? You just designed a website. It's very easy. Okay, so if you remember what we said, these instructions that we said over here, we said we labeled H1 over here, but if you look at your browser, you don't see any H1 over there. Right now, these things have been converted into the appropriate ones and zeros for your website. Okay, so Google Chrome took this instructions, converted into ones and zeros, and the computer said, oh, okay, you want me to display a heading with this text, so let me do that for you, right? So we can even add another one. Okay, I love designing websites, okay, with a different instruction, right? And then we save that, so you can hit now that you've saved it before, you can just hit Control S on your keyboard. So Control plus S to save it, and then let's open it again. Wow. So now we have another page. So now you realize that this is bigger, this is smaller, right? But then the only thing we did here was that we enclose this in H5, we enclose this in H1. So the Google Chrome converts this. So these are the instructions, these are the standards that we talked about. So this is the language that we talked about. So then your journey is basically about learning these tags, knowing, you want to make something big, what instructions you use. Okay, so you learn that standard, right? And don't be scared about it. It's not hard. The more you do it, like we said, the more you practice, the more it becomes like a second nature or a third nature. I also remember when I was starting this first, I didn't even know what H1 meant or what H5 meant, but with time, as you use it more and more, it becomes like second nature to you, right? And then you just keep improving from there. So let's do something more exciting. We said we are going to build a blue website, but we've not done it yet. So let's go. So we're going to add something a little bit more complicated. Let's make this color red, right? So this is the instruction for that. Now let's reload our HTML page. Wow. So now, hello, this is my first website. It's now red color, right? Your website is already looking good as it stands, and you are doing all this with Notepad. All right, so even with Notepad, you can literally design an entire, basic website just with Notepad. All right, so now let's go one step ahead, even further. Now let's make our website blue. Okay, so I'm going to do something really simple here. Right, body, style. Okay, this time around I use an instruction called background color. Let's make it blue. All right, now let's open this again. Yes, now we have our blue website. So this is now a blue website. All right, let's just add one more interesting thing. Let's just say we can make this style color white. All right, so I have all these instructions out of muscle memory, out of second nature. I know all these off head, right? So as you practice more and more, you know how to go around it. So we built a website, a very simple website. I think you should be clapping for yourself now. You've done great, right? So basically, all the instructions that we've listed over, when you visit the website, you don't see this, but behind the scenes, okay, Google Chrome has converted this into something the computer understands. So if I even open this in a Firefox, for example, I'm going to get the same thing. All right, I'm going to get the same thing because it's a standard. It's been standardized, so all the browsers understand it. Okay, all the chefs understand it. So this is Firefox is also doing the same thing, converting this into the ones and zeros that the computer understands. So when you have a browser on your computer, this is basically all that is happening. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. So now that you have an idea of how how simple it is to create a website, I think we can move on to the next lesson as well. All right, so now that you've had your first experience with developing your first Hello World website, now let's talk about the components of a typical software or program. Right now, as you do more complicated things, you realize that you will need certain components or functions to make your software logic, more organized and more understandable, because it's in instructions, right? So the clearer you can make the instructions, the better the computer can get you your output. So one of the very core fundamentals of every software or program is the variables, right? So example, in order to prepare your recipe, right, you need bowls, you need containers to store the ingredients. You cannot just use ingredients from the air. They need to be contained in something, right? So take the variables as containers of ingredients, right? They store information that is used across the program, right? Different types of variables can hold, different types of information. Just like some bowls can hold water, some cannot hold water, some can hold powdery items, some cannot hold powdery items, powdery ingredients, and also it's just like that with variables. Okay, different types of variables contain different things in a program. All right, let's say you are writing a program Or for example, you are writing, you are designing a website, and what happens is that when on the website, what you want the website to do is that when the user clicks on a button A, the color of the website should become blue, and when the user clicks on the button B, the color of the website should become red. For example, now how do you store this blue and red colors in the program so that the computer can now pick it up and then do it? So you can store the blue and red colors in a variable. Okay, then when the user clicks the button A, the program can just pick up that variable and then whatever color is in the display. Okay, so this is the idea. So take variables as containers of information that are used across a program. All right, that's one very key thing about variables. Now, the next thing is conditionals. Conditionals are also a very, very important part of programs. All right, now you are sort of getting the computer to think in a way. Let's say your chef preparing your meal using your recipe. Okay, you're supposed to add salt to the meal. What happens when I don't have enough salt? Are there some other options? Are there some other things I can do? Okay, those things are important in making your recipe very, very watertight. Right, so that whatever recipe is lacking, whatever component is lacking, the chef can make a decision as to what to do and still get a similar output. Right, so that's it about conditionals in programs. Right, I tell the computer that if there's a certain condition that is not met, okay, do this. All right, if a certain condition is not met, do this. Now let's give an example. Let's say in an ATM software, right? If you are designing a software like that, now ATM software takes in the customer's PIN, right? The customer's PIN before the customer can go ahead and perform whatever transaction they have to perform. Now you write the code that, okay, accept the customer's PIN and then allow the customer to do whatever they want to. Now, what if the customer enters the wrong PIN? All right, so that is a conditional. So you tell your program if the PIN is wrong or if the PIN doesn't check out, show an illegal login attempt something. That's a conditional at work over there. Right. Example, your phone as well. Let's say a conditional at work is, let's say, in the phone storage. But when you open your phone's camera, right, the system definitely does some checks to see whether you have enough storage to take a picture. If there is no enough storage, the system will show you a pop-up that you do not have enough storage, or even go ahead and then just close the camera up on your phone. So all these things are conditions. They sort of make your instructions intelligent, right, as to different conditions around it. So conditionals are like in every complete program. Now, this loops are also very, very important. In fact, all the components you've mentioned, you can't write programs without them. Loops are also very, 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 very important. Now, a loop is like, it's an instruction that tells the chef that, hey, keep doing something until a certain condition is reached. Okay, so example, in your recipe, an instruction can be like telling the chef to keep pouring water till the ingredients fully dissolve. Right, that is like a loop. So the ingredients dissolve, the water should not, and that's like an instruction that is key to get your meal right. So example, in you are playing music on your phone, you have a playlist, or you can say that, okay, well, you put one track on the playlist on repeat. You love that track so much, you want to put it on repeat. How does the computer know to repeat? Okay, an instruction has been written that, hey, when you click the button repeat, right, the computer should play that music over and over and over and over and over again. So that button, you unclick it. No, you can click the repeat and then unclick the repeat. Okay, so that then the playlist goes on normally, right? So these are ways that loops are very important in writing a program. Now, databases. I'm sure you've heard so much about databases. You hear it being thrown around so many times. But then databases are very simple. Okay, they are simply storage to help computers keep information for later use. Okay, now don't confuse databases with variables. Okay, databases are sort of persistent. What do I mean by persistent? Usually for variables, once you close the application or the software, you lose all the information. For example, but for databases, even when you go and come back, log out, log in of the software, shut down your computer, whatever it is, you still come back to it. So, and usually variables are used. In fact, there's so much differences between variables and database that if I were to go on, I think that can take another whole video. Okay, database are more structured, allow you to store a whole different type of information and that kind of thing, right? So databases, for example, you want to log into your YouTube account. How do you log into your YouTube account if the YouTube software doesn't remember that, okay, there's somebody called Peter or somebody called Kojo in my system? Okay, so they need to store, once you are, so in the sign up process, that information is stored somewhere, which is usually called a database. That is how come you're able to YouTube is able to remember you when you come back and then you try to log in. So one thing that happens is that when you try to log in and then they show you an illegal login, it means, okay, yes, there's information called peter@gmail.com in the database, but then the password you are entering is not what we have in our system, so there may be a mistake somewhere. Okay, so that's how verification and authentication also work with databases. Now, databases are also used to store things like watch history. If you open your YouTube app on your phone and then you go to your watch history, it's populated from a database. So anything you watch is stored. The details of the videos are stored in a database, such that no matter where you access your YouTube from, you can always read and get your information again, as long as you are logged into the same account. Okay, your WhatsApp chat messages are stored in a database, such that even if you put off your phone and come back, is there. So that is what we call persistence. Databases offer persistence. Your bank account balance, right, is stored in a database. So if you have $1,000, $50,000 in your account, okay, that is stored in the database. So anytime you transact, that is updated, right? Anytime you log into your bank app and then check your account, it is read from your account that, hey, this is how much you are. So that's the persistence that is available that databases offer, right? So database basically are just organized storage system, and there's a whole different types of databases out there that you can use that is a bit beyond the scope of this particular course. Now, next is APIs, usually called the abbreviation for application programming interface. Right now, APIs. So take it this way. Let's say you're entering a secured area. It doesn't belong to you, like let's say an office building or a facility, right? Now, what happens is that you are supposed to go through a certain protocol. They scan you, they do this, check your bag and make sure you go through metal detectors and all that to make sure that you are legitimate before they allow you in. So take APIs to like protocols, right? Now, what happens is as you develop more complicated software, sometimes you need to interact with other software. Okay, you need to get access to other information from other software. Now, you can't just enter somebody's software just like that. Okay, so that is when APIs come in. They're sort of protocols that are designed to help you access information somewhere. All right, let's say you are building a software that needs to show the weather or the temperature in the weather at that point in time to the user. Okay, now you do not have access to the equipment used to measure temperature, right? So what you can do, you can read from another software that does that to fetch the weather at that time. Okay, so that is when APIs come in. And then the other way around is also true. Let's say you develop a software, you want to make some functionality of your software available to other products or other software, then APIs to come. So that's what APIs are. So it's an application programming interface. It's an interface that you can connect to get additional functionality or pull in additional functionality for other software. So basically that's our APIs. There are more there are different types of APIs out there. It's also an entire topic on its own. But as you advance in your web development career, you get an idea of how it works. All right. And now the UI. Okay, you hear of UI, user interface. It's simple. I think UI is a bit self-explanatory. Okay, it's the portion of the program that allows for external user input. Now, the UI is what the user can interact with. The user doesn't necessarily need to know what is going on behind the scenes. When you eat a meal, for example, you can eat a meal and enjoy it without knowing what recipe was used to prepare the meal. Okay, so that's one very key importance of it. That's how UI comes into play. So, example, you watching this video on YouTube. You are watching the video, you're enjoying the video, but you do not really know the instructions in YouTube to make it possible to watch this video. Okay, or when you use WhatsApp, when you use social media, when you use Microsoft Edge, you are enjoying the product, but what you are interacting with is the user interface. So anytime you develop a software, there's a user interface part of the software that allows users to interact with your program and your instructions. And the user doesn't necessarily need to know what is going on behind the scenes. So that's the user interface. All right, so once again, remember to subscribe to this channel if you already haven't done so. There's a whole lot of content out there that we are coming up with, and a whole lot of career tips as well. Thank you very much. So now you're moving on to something even more interesting, right? As a web developer, you need to sort of get a basic understanding of what happens, when your website is visited. There's a whole lot that goes on there, but once again, this is an introductory course. You are going to stick to the very bare fundamentals and ideology behind it. So what happens when you type in www.youtube.com to show you the website, right? So if you remember in our lab, you realize that website is just a file, okay, that resides on the computer, right? In this case, a server. Servers are simply specialized high-end computers accessible over the internet through the browser, right? So they are like so your computer, if your computer is high-end enough, you can make a server. In fact, your computer can become a server, right? But then as more and more people access the website, you need more resources, okay, more memory, more storage, and all that stuff. So basically, servers are just specialized high-end computers, right? So the websites are files. So you realize that we opened the file and then it popped up in a browser, right? Now this file is just right on our computer, so it was very simple. The browser just chose the file location and then displayed whatever is there, compiled it, interpreted it, and showed us the website, right? Now, when you go to the internet and the files are not on your own computer, it's a different ballgame, right? So now, how does there are so many servers and computers on the internet. So YouTube servers are there, Facebook servers are there. They are all storing the Facebook website files, right? Now, how does the browser know that, hey, how do I get this particular, how do I go to this particular server? How do I go to this particular server for the site this person has requested for? All right. So then these servers on the internet are identified by special numbers. So let's say 4.0.43.67. No, there are these numbers, but how do you know YouTube server number? Okay, or YouTube servers numbers when there are a lot, right? You can't chew this, and imagine you have to chew this, learn this by rote for like all the website that you visit. I mean, it's going to be very, very tricky, right? So then what has been done, right? So because we cannot remember these numbers, a system was generated to map these numbers to an address, which is that www.youtube.com that you use, right? So then behind the scenes, this youtube.com is mapped to that special number, right? So anytime you enter www.youtube.com, the browser, through something behind the scenes, a whole lot of processes behind the scenes, sort of maps the youtube.com to the address of the server that has the youtube.com files. So once it gets there, it loads the files and then it shows that you choose some protocols, right? So basically, this is how youtube.com is first for you to see, which is why when you enter youtube.com, you don't see facebook.com instead, right? But then even with that, there are things you can do to actually show facebook.com when you visit youtube.com, okay, if the right things are done behind the scenes. All right, so let's break this down into an analogy, right? So take a provision shop as a server, right? And if all the full stuff in there are files and components that we talked about that make up the website, right? Now when you take the provision shop, you want to get some food from the provision shop. Now the actual location of the provision shop on the map is usually represented by latitude and longitude. So you have something like this, which is the latitude and longitude for Accra, for example, right? Now, how can we possibly keep this in our memory all the time, right? So how are we able to store this in memory? Okay, now a human being will find it very hard to remember that. Okay, so then we generated human-friendly name conversions that map to this latitude. Okay, so then something like Haydon Street, Block 5, for example, is used to map to the latitude and longitude. So anytime you enter that street name into Google Map automatically maps that to the actual latitude and longitude. you get it, of that particular shop, and you're able to locate it. It's the same reason why you're able to enter www.acertainwebsite.com instead of the numbers, and then you're able to get linked to the server that is in charge of storing the files for that particular website. Now, these are basically what you need to develop a program, in this case, a website. So, like you said, you need to know HTML, CSS, a programming language. You need a text editor. So, Notepad is a text editor. It's the simplest, or probably the simplest text editor you can get, right? But as you do more complicated things, you need more advanced editors like Sublime Text, Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, Eclipse, Android Studio. All those are advanced. They are all text editors, they created text editors that help you to do your work easier. You also need a browser. Okay, you cannot become a web developer without having a browser on your device, because you need a whole variety of browsers, because to see how they all look in the different browsers, right? And these browsers, like we said, they convert HTML or CSS to what the computer understands and can follow to display a website. Okay, so you need to make the browser your best friend. Okay, explore it all the time. Know how it works. Dive into detail into how it is converting your code and instructions into your website that you want to display. All right. We will get a bit of the technical stuff to the career related things. Right. That is the must-haves as a professional web developer. You need a personal computer and a smartphone. You cannot be a professional web developer without this. You need a personal computer, a laptop, and a smartphone, right? You need to be testing your designs on a computer and then open it on a smartphone to see how it looks and all. You need it. Also, I advise that you need a GitHub profile, right? A platform to upload and back up your project or code. Also collaborate with other developers. You need to get your code out there, and sometimes before you get a job, the company would like to see some of the code and projects that you've done. You put it out there. As long as it's your own project, you have the rights to it. It's your own code. You can upload it there and make it yours, right? You cannot upload maybe the code of a business or a company that you work for. No, that is not depending on their terms and conditions, except it's an open source project or something that you are allowed to do so. But then it has your profile. Okay, so you need a GitHub profile. It's very key. It's very key. Now, I advise newbie developers that engage in a lot of projects with reports on and experience on them, right? Like a minimum of 7 at least. It doesn't have to be real life. It doesn't have to be actual projects that people are using, all right? It could be something you did, but they need to be a bit close to real life, something that can be used, but it's not necessarily being used there and then. Okay, but have these projects, do them as much, a minimum of 7 at least. Okay, have as much projects as you can. Okay, no matter how small they are, put it there, do it, and learn to complete the project that you start, because an incomplete project doesn't really count. So learn to complete the project, even right from the word go. Try to engage in as much project, because then these are the things that will actually help you to even be able to get a job sometime when you don't have any work experience, right? We'll talk more about that too, right? So projects are very, 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 very important. And a CV, get a neat CV, a resume, work on it, look on the web. We'll talk more about that too in other videos, how you can design your CV as a web developer, okay, so that it can be, people can actually look at the CV and they know that, because how you design your CV as a web developer is different from how maybe an accountant will put their CV together. So get a CV, very, very key. And then also have some social media presence. At least basically, you don't have to be like social media junkie in quotes, sorry. Like you have some presence. Let potential employers and maybe customers be able to find you. Okay, I should be able to go somewhere and at least get an idea of your personality, who you are, right? Don't be a ghost. There are some people that you go to social media, you have zero information about them. You don't know whether they're actually real human beings or bots. Okay, so have some basic social media presence. It's very important as a professional web developer. You don't need to be posting, but at least people should be able to go to your profile and see your face, see your pictures, a few things about you, a few comments, a few posts, and get a better idea about you and relate to you more. So These I think are the must-haves of it. Once you have this in your pocket, it opens up a lot of opportunity for you as you build your profession, right? Now talk about the typical web developer career path, right? There's a whole lot, but I'm going to talk about the most common ones, right? Now it's usually determined by what you're most passionate about or the type of applications that you want to build. Okay, as you learn about the various components of a typical website and the software, you realize that you start to bias towards a certain angle, right? I am a full stack developer, but I am backend heavy, right? What is the front end? Like we said, the interface parts of things, the usual part that customers interact with or users interact with. Some people like to work more on that angle. Some people like to work on the back end, the databases and what is going on behind the scenes. I prefer the back end, though I can also do front end, right? Then there are the database administrators, right? It's also a part that you can go. We talked about database storage. Some people like to focus on that one too as well, right? And there's a whole lot you can do. And one thing you have to know is that the more you sort of get more experience, get more knowledge, then the higher the opportunities to for you arise. You get it? Definitely somebody who has 4 years experience with a lot of projects has the potential to earn more than somebody who is just starting. Okay, so it's really just a matter of skill, a matter of what you can do, a matter of your exposure and your experience, right? But then uh, if you want to get to some level, some very high level corporate roles, okay, usually it becomes very necessary to have like a degree or like a professional certification, right? As you take your career more seriously. Now, a web developer, you self learned, okay, learned on your own, you got a job, you want to, it doesn't hurt at all. In fact, it gives you an extra edge if you're able to get that degree, if it's possible, or some professional certification just to, formalize your knowledge. Okay, that is the way, formalize your knowledge. So this is usually the part. So there's so many angles you can go. You can become a freelancer, okay, where you work for no one, okay. You take projects, from clients, you build for them, pay as you go gig, and that also something very profitable. It's also a niche in itself, or you can go full time, like we said. So there's so many angles you can do, so many exciting opportunities and avenues you can explore. And then the truth is, you can even combine this. You can be a freelancer at the same time working full time. Okay, so it's all really up to you, your lifestyle, what you want for your career, and also depends on how much you are satisfied with earning, right? So that's the career part. And then I'll talk about some of the frequently asked questions that come. So, is there a difference between a web developer and a software engineer? Well, yes. A software engineer can be a web developer, but a web developer cannot necessarily be a software engineer, right? So web development is sort of like a subset of software engineering. Now, software engineers, like, are more high end too, right? They go into documentations, code documentations, testing, user analysis, user studies. They do a whole lot, okay, and they are more end to end. Okay, right from interface to database, engineering, networking, a software engineer needs to understand everything that happens in between. Okay, so software engineers are more high end. Okay, so to get to that engineering role, like I said, you need to a software engineer needs a degree, at least at minimum, before you can call yourself an engineer. Okay, so that is very key. You need to understand math, algebra, like those are all important aspects of a software engineer that a web developer doesn't necessarily have, right? Now, the other question you usually get is, can I learn and master multiple programming languages? Yes, you can. You can learn and master as many programming languages as you want, right? But truth of the matter is that in reality, you'd only use a few at a time. All right, yeah, it's more like at each point in time, you may know HTML, Java, C Sharp, Python, but at each point in time, you be called upon to use just one at a time, or just maybe two or three at a time, right? So it's good to sort of learn, if you can learn and master, a whole lot. It's hard to do it, but then it's possible, right? Learn and master a whole lot, but then as you progress in your career, you realize that there's only a few that you use at a point in time. For example, myself, when I started to learn so many languages. I gave myself a target of learning about 10 languages at the same time. So I explored C sharp, explored Python, explored all those languages. But in the long run in my career, I end up biasing towards PHP, C sharp, JavaScript more and more, right? Because that is what I loved the most. That is what I love to play around the most. But then, yes, it doesn't stop you from exploring other languages. And is it worth it becoming a web developer currently? Yes, it's worth it. Like we talked about, the opportunities are immense. All right, it gives you a lot of flexibility. In fact, there are web developers that are using their skills to even create mobile applications. It's possible these days. Okay, you can, with languages like React Native, you can use your same web programming skills to sort of develop mobile apps. So being a web developer is a very, very versatile career that you really need to explore. All right, and then I'm 30 years plus. Is it too late to become a web developer? No, it's definitely not too late. Once you understand that this career is a lifetime thing, right, then you don't put any timelines to it. Okay, whether you are 30, whether you are 35, whether you are 25, 20, whatever age you are, as long as you are willing to dedicate your lifetime to this, it's never too late. If it's something you just want to test out, then I will not advise you to waste your time. But if it's something that you really want to make a career, then it's never too late, right? Now, 30 years plus, people are still doing degrees, right? People still do degrees and masters, 4-year degrees, 2-year masters, 3-year masters. They still do it after 30, even after 40, right? And 4 years, for example, is a long time to build a great profession in web development. 4 years is like above minimum. Usually the minimum people ask for is 3 years. So with 4 years experience in web development, you are like a professional. If you have put in the work, if you've mastered, if you have a lot of a project under your belt and all, then 4 years is good. So 30 years is nothing. All right. So as long as you're willing to dedicate a lifetime to it, then you can easily start. Easily start. Right. So don't let the age be a limitation. Now, I do not have any knowledge or skills in computer science and math. Can I become a web developer? Yes. When I started a web development, the first time I tried web development, I wasn't even in college. I didn't really know complicated math or algorithms. All I knew was my notepad and my few text editors, and that was it. That was what kickstarted my career. So you don't need any knowledge in computer skills and math, computer science and math. You don't need to be a computer scientist. You don't need to have a science background or a tech background. You can start where you are right now, just like what we did. We built a simple Hello World website, and you don't have any computer science knowledge. The more you advance, that is when these computer science and math concepts come into play. But it takes you going to a very high level, and even then, you don't use math on a very daily, unless you're doing like really optimized stuff, compression, and a whole lot of high-end things or low-level things that require some detail, tiny specific details. But trust me, most web developers never have to do that in their entire career, and most companies never have to do that in their entire career. So don't worry about that, right? As long as you are willing and have the heart and are ready to learn, you are good to go, and you learn as you go, as I already said, right? Okay, so do I need to get experience in an actual company to become a professional web developer? No. Like I said, you need your project. The projects are key. Yes, the experience is you get some internships here, some few months experience here. It's very key. I mean, it puts you on the edge. But if you don't have anything like that, your projects are your mouthpiece, right? Sometimes companies will hire you not because you've worked for other companies, but simply because you have some very interesting projects that you've worked on. And just from your project, you know that, hey, this guy or this girl has the potential of doing the work, right? Then now they test you more for your collaboration. Remember we talked about collaboration skills, communication. So they test you more. How good are you at communicating? How good are you at collaborating with your team members? Okay, so experience is not all that is. People can freelance for years and then decide to go corporate, and it works. Why? Because they have a lot of experience. They have a lot of projects under their belt. So you don't always need to get experience in an actual company in the beginning to become a professional web developer. Trust me, that is not it. There are jobs that I have gotten, there are full-time opportunities that I have gotten that I did not get because I have experience, but simply because of the project that I have under my belt. Okay, simply because I know the thing, right? That is just a matter of what do you know? Do you know it? Can you do the work? That is all that matters in the corporate. Okay, so don't be frustrated or depressed too much about that. Okay, if it comes, you take it, you exploit, you try to get the experience, but that is not what is going to get you that job. We talked about how to communicate effectively and clearly. I want to you know throw more light on this. Now, communicating effectively and clearly is key as a web developer, like we mentioned. Okay, so how do you do that? You improve your knowledge in the use of collaboration tools. As you work with people, as you work with other developers, you learn to use the Slack, Trello, just use Zoom and email. Okay, we are in a remote, we are in a remote world these days. So sometimes you are in one country working with a client in another country, or team members in another country. You need to know how to use this to share, to share your ideas, share your thoughts and stuff like that. So knowing these collaboration tools is key. Learning to design presentations, mockups, and prototypes. Okay, you have an idea, or maybe your boss gives you some problem. How do you mock up a solution quickly, right? Just to get without jumping into the code. How do you in fact, a whole part of your journey as a web developer, before you start projects, you have to do a lot of planning and thinking. Sometimes you have to design a simple presentation to show people, okay, this is the solution that I'm proposing. This is what that we can do, right? You need to know how to do that as well. Mockups, prototypes, wireframes, right? And then also, it's a huge plus if you can learn to express yourself properly in English, right? It gives you more possibilities, right? It's really, like when it happens that you have to work with people from other countries, usually English is what is like the common ground for different natives. All right, so it's a huge plus if you can speak English, brushing up, freshen up on your English, and then be able to communicate with others where necessary. And in learning to communicate effectively and clearly, you need to learn some basics of copywriting. Now, what is copywriting? That is, most of the time as a web developer, you'll be developing things for businesses, website for businesses. You need to have an idea of how to sell or how to write things to convince customers to use their platform, right? So understanding some basic copywriting, how to word your statements on your website is very key. It gives you an extra some extra oomph, some extra wow factor, right? Also learn the industry's lingo and don't get missing, right? When terms are being thrown around, you don't get missing like, what's going on, right? So keep updated. Anytime you realize that you are getting too much lost on new terms, new terminology, new concepts, then it means that you are lagging behind. So quickly catch up and learn to listen. I can't stress this enough. Once you start working with people, with your boss, with your customers, with clients, you realize that these people are not the technical people. So how they express their problems they want you to solve, it comes in, they say it in different ways that are not technical. So it's up to you to listen to them carefully and then break it down into actual technical problems that you can solve. So learn to listen, learn to ask questions to clarify. Because some people can say something and then mean something else, right? They are trying to just communicate with you, right? And then learn to explain your solutions in concise and short statements as well, as much as you can, right? Know the kind of person you are communicating with. If the person is technically savvy, you know the kind of words you can use. Don't be using industry lingo and jargons on somebody who is not even a developer, who is not a programmer, and expect the person to understand. Okay, so try to communicate in the language that the person that is on the receiving end can understand. This is something that makes you a very unique web developer. So it goes beyond just your skills. If these things are lacking, you will not have success with your professional development. All right, so my last words, right, to become for this course and to become a good world-class web developer. Become a master at Googling, right? Like I said, self-learning. This is related to that. Learn to Google for solutions to answers from platform, from blogs, from Stack Overflow. Okay, Stack Overflow is a popular platform that you find lots of solutions to most of the problems that you encounter. Learn to understand these solutions, right? There are so many developers that I meet that do not know how to Google answers, right? If you are finding a challenge, you don't always spend too much time trying to crack it. Most of the things you encounter, somebody has encountered it before. It's always nice to get the solution, to see how somebody solved it, make it your own, add some to it, remove it from it, and also find your solution, right? If you do not know how to Google and find your answers, you'll be lacking. All right, it's a skill that you need to have. How to go on YouTube, search for videos, watch videos immediately, read through documentations, read through manuals, right? To get an idea of how certain things are done. Sometimes the solution or the next idea that you need is hidden somewhere in some blog post, is hidden somewhere in some article. Sometimes you have to scout the internet for content. You have to read series and series of articles to find your solution, right? So becoming a master at it and soliciting information is very key. The next thing is to practice. Keep practicing. Like I said, build projects, try out things, try out new languages, keep learning, watch short videos, watch long videos, take courses. Never stop, because practicing is what makes you. You stop for 1 year, a few months, a few weeks, you become rusty, you forget everything that you've learned, right? Because of how fast things are evolving. Now copy, right? Now not to steal people's stuff or people's work without acknowledging them, but then copy in a sense that be curious to know how things are done and to duplicate it and clone it. Okay, sometimes you take a website that you love the design or you love the color that was used, try to inspect, break down the website, look at the color name over there, look at how they laid it out, try to duplicate the same thing for yourself. Okay, in doing that you are learning, okay, and you are finding better ways that things are being done. All right, so that goes hand in hand with being curious and with learning new things whenever you can. Okay, don't take things as they are. Okay, challenge yourself too all the time. You see a website, it's very beautiful, it's very nice. You see an application, it's amazing. You feel like, hey, this is really complicated. This is beyond what I know. Don't be scared to attack it. Go there, break it down, try to find out how inspect it, try to find out how that particular website was developed. Once you do that, you're on a path to becoming like that crazy guru, rock star web programmer in your field. All right, so as a bonus, I said I was going to teach you how to set up your first developer environment, which is Sublime Text. All right, so over here I visited the sublimetext.com website, right? It's we use Notepad for our lab, and I said so many times that it's just a text editor. You realize that over here on their website, it's just a simple text editor like Notepad, but with more advanced stuff. Some of the things have been colored over here, and then all that stuff. So you simply come here. I've already downloaded it, so you download it for Windows, all right, and then you install it. Okay, if you need any support on how to install it, you just go through their website. It's very simple, just like how you install any other software. Once you are done installing, you go to your start menu right here, and then you can just enter Sublime Text. This is very simple, but comes with a lot of stuff. So let's try something really quickly. H1, like we said. Hello, this is my second website. This is actually my second website, right? So H1, right? Okay, you realize that it's the same thing as we type in Notepad. Okay, but let's try saving this as an HTML file on our desktop, right? So we click desktop, so hello2.html, and we save it. Wow, so now you see that this time around we have some color around it. Okay, so unlike Notepad, we have some color over here to make your entire, in fact, the body was automatically filled too as well. So you realize that this makes your work a bit easier, right? You see over here. So this is basically an IDE. So this is what we call the integrated development environment. It's an IDE. It gives you more control, more flow, more ways to make your coding process faster, more efficient. Okay, now speed is very important as a web developer. So then you cannot use Notepad for very complicated tasks. So then immediately you can opt for this. There's Sublime Text. There's a whole lot of other options too as well, not just Sublime Text. We have Notepad. These are the popular ones. Notepad plus plus, right? We use Notepad, but we have Notepad plus plus, okay, that you can download to. We have VS Code, which is the most popular one currently. Visual Studio Code that you can also download, right? I prefer, Visual Studio Code is what I prefer, is what I use, right? But then if it's too complicated for you, you can just take to Sublime Text. I used Sublime Text for years before I finally switched to Visual Studio Code. So whichever works for you, you can start. But I advise that now you are starting, you can simply start with Sublime Text just to get a hold around things. Then immediately you can switch to Visual Studio Code. You can also use Notepad plus plus as well. So these are the options. It's not very complicated. It's very straightforward. It's very easy, just like any text editor with more specs. So thank you very much. So last word, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you enjoyed the video, share this video, leave a click on the notification link, tell us in the comments how much you love this video, and we really will appreciate it. So thank you so very much for staying through this video. Not everybody is able to do that because it's a new thing, it's daunting, it's something new and all, but then you've been able to last to the end of this video. That is the hallmark of a true developer, your first win. So I think you should clap for yourself in that vein, and then hope to see you in all our upcoming videos that will be dropping on the channel. And don't miss any of it, because there's a whole lot we'll be teaching, from HTML essentials to more and more career tips, to help you build that profession, that web development profession that you want. All right, so thank you once again, and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.